it was such a new thing. And so that's what I did my master's thesis on. And so it was something that I just really, really enjoyed. It kind of took me away from the stress of work, and I could focus on something a little bit different. And so this was my thesis. If anybody is interested in checking it out, you can always Google it and find it. But, the start of my research career was kind of here with my master's program. And then I graduated, and then another question pops up when you get another degree, right? Is like, what do you do after your degree? I was very confused, right? Do I go back to school and do my PhD, or do I continue with my work, my career? I was just very lost, and I'm sure a lot of students, some of you probably might be feeling that way too, in different levels of your, whether it's high school or college. Although I was lost, I was trying to think of the opportunities, and as much as I wanted to go and do my PhD, I happened to get a job offer at this organization called Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance, where they focus on growing the economy of our region in Las Vegas. And they wanted to hire me as one of their directors, and it was just an opportunity that I couldn't say no to. So I stayed here. And I figured I can put my PhD on hold for a little bit. That's still something I'm really interested in, but let me not miss out on this opportunity. So I was here at the LVGA for about 2 years. And loved it. It was a lot of fun. But I realized somebody like me, loves, I love a lot of new things every day. I don't really like routine. So being here for 2 years, I felt like I hit a capacity and was like, maybe it's time for a change. And then I got into BTS while I was in the organization, and I don't know what happened. A spark kind of lit up in me, just as probably a lot of you, when you found BTS too, right? There's just great energy around BTS, and they're so inspiring. And I remember going to a concert. My first concert with BTS was at the Staples Center in LA. I remember going to the show and looking around the audience, and like this fire lit up on me, and I was like, I need to go back and do research. And I didn't mention this before, but one of the reasons why I love doing research on fandoms and doing research on these types of groups like BTS and One Direction is I always felt like there was a story to be told that people weren't accurately representing, right? In the media, historically, we talk about fandoms, and there's this perception and stigma about who fans are, and it's obviously very inaccurate and very unfair, and that's a lot of why I started doing this work. And when I went to BTS's concert, I remember looking out into the crowd and just feeling so inspired by the diversity of people there, and the fact that they brought all of these people together in one place through their music. I thought that was amazing, and that's something that inspired me to get back into school. And so that's why I did that. Amidst that time, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, UNLV, School of Public Health, I was offered a job to be their director of communications there. And honestly, this was just perfect timing. The fact that I really wanted to go back and do my PhD at this university. For anybody who plans on getting graduate degrees, anything like that, if you ever get a job at your university, definitely take that opportunity, because it helps pay for your school. So it was just almost serendipitous and fate that I got this job offer while I wanted to do my PhD. So I went after this job and said, okay, I can go here and also do my PhD at the same time, and it'll be great. So currently I'm still at the UNLV School of Public Health. I do marketing communications. I head up that department, and we focus on just simply raising awareness of health issues in our communities. Obviously, COVID-19 is happening right now, so all of that is public health. So we've been quite busy. So that's been a lot of fun, though, and very rewarding working in that space. And then again, you know, a lot of my fandom research is now focused on BTS and ARMY, and I'm trying to kind of find that balance of like working full time while also doing my PhD full time. But it's just like really amazing that I get to keep doing two of these passions of mine at the same time, and it's something that just keeps my brain thinking and moving, and I love it a lot. And so I think takeaways for like everyone here in what I've learned through my experience, you know, people tell me a lot like how cool it is to be able to do what you're passionate about. And I you know, I agree. I'm very lucky. And I tell people this all the time. I could not imagine doing something that I'm not passionate about and that I don't love. You know, I've been offered a ton of money before to take certain jobs, and I never take it because it's just really not worth missing out on like happiness to do something. And so just a couple takeaways, if I can give that to any of you who are trying to figure out their way and figure out their journey. So obviously first is achieving your dreams takes time, right? Take initiative for sure, but like know that it obviously it takes patience. You know, I got to where I am now in like 10 years. And I really honestly am at like my happiest point in my career. So it obviously took some time, right? It doesn't happen all at once. I meet a lot of college students who graduate college and then think like tomorrow everything is going to be amazing. They're going to get their dream job, but it unfortunately doesn't work that way, right? You have to work towards it. Second, it really is okay to not know what your passion or your dream is yet. Some of us, you know, don't figure that out until like midway through our college career. You might not even know that until after college, right? Like you just don't know. It's more like about that self-discovery. I feel like my passion is kind of like, and my dreams have changed like over the years, and that's okay. And that kind of leads to that third point. Like, it's okay if your passions change, and it's okay to have more than one dream. I don't think that you should be disappointed for that. We're human, and we evolve over time, and our interests vary. And so coming to terms with that and being at peace with that is super important. Fourth, creating a vision and a plan of action. I am a very structured person, and I love planning. And somebody told me very early on in my career is one of the keys to being successful is creating a vision for yourself, and then working towards that, right? So I always saw myself doing like, so for instance with communication, I knew I wanted to do communications, but something that was rewarding, and kind of sitting down and telling myself that's super important. And so like reflect, right? Like take a piece of paper, write down like what are you interested in, what are you passionate about, like what gets you excited and what gets you up in the morning. That's super important. The next one, be adaptable, right? Like there's no right path or like one path to achieving your dream. Like obviously me, like I've had so many jobs in like 10 years, and a lot of people are like, oh, that's kind of weird that you've had a lot of jobs, but in reality it's just me trying to find myself and trying to find the best fit, like, and that's okay. And that leads to, like sometimes things just don't work out. And I think you have to be like true to yourself and like real with yourself and honest about like, if you don't like it, you don't need to convince yourself anything otherwise. Like find something else that you're passionate about that you can love, right? And then lastly is probably the most important thing, is to not let anybody tell you that what you're passionate about isn't important or isn't worth anything. When I first started doing fandom research, I remember people would laugh at me when I would tell them that that's what I wanted to do, or if I presented something on fandom, they thought it was like the dumbest thing. And now, you know, I'm grateful to have a little bit of more respect there. But, you know, a mentor of mine always tells me this every day. He's like, if you're passionate about something, that's all you ever need. Like nobody can take that away from you or tell you that it isn't important or isn't something that you should be passionate about. And that's something that I keep with myself. every day. And so, you know, I certainly want to open this up for discussion because I don't want to talk throughout the whole thing all the time. But if I'm always like, I love talking to students, especially since I work in education too. Like if you ever want to just like have a one-on-one chat or like need any advice or guidance, like in a general sense of finding your career path or college path, that sort of thing, this is my email. Feel free to take it down. Feel free to contact me. I'm always happy to have conversation. You know, I sit on boards of nonprofits where we host mentorship programs, and I love doing this. This is another passion of mine, is just working with students. So feel free to reach out to me there. And so with that, I will take a break from my screen. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? I know I said in the chat earlier at the beginning, like, I'd love to know, like, what majors are you guys from? Like, what grades are you guys in? Like, can a few of you drop that in the chat? Like, I'd love to get to know some of you. And if there's any questions, like, feel free to type that in. I don't know Andy too. I don't know if Army Academics had any questions for me either, but yeah.
Well, so far, I believe that everything has been great. But, well, Susie Crew has a question for you. Oh, well. She says... Oh, well.
Yeah, I see the comment. So, second year college, studying psychology. Yeah, so taking communications, I'm sure all of you probably know this, but there's like career and college stats, like things like that, and it says that the number one like fear for a lot of students and just a lot of people in general is public speaking. Thank you all for typing in your majors. That's awesome. So ironically, when I was in high school, I was terrified of public speaking. I hated speaking in front of people. And to be honest, as the years go on, I'm actually an introvert naturally. So I generally don't if you tell me I need to go to a networking event, I am so freaked out by it. Like, I just hate it. I'm kind of a homebody, and like to just be at home and not talk to anybody. But strangely, I love public speaking. I really don't know why, but I think it's because I love being able to talk about something that I am really interested in. But if you're talking to me about like if we're just having small talk in a big setting with a lot of people, that makes me very uncomfortable. So, and I'm sure that's a lot of people who are introverts, but yeah, public speaking is hard. And you know what I used to tell myself, and why I started getting over public speaking, is if I needed to speak in front of people, I would tell myself that if they were in my position, they would probably just be just as scared as me, and that I shouldn't feel pressure on myself, but it's certainly a fear for a lot of people, for sure. So don't feel too pressured, especially in college classes. If you have to take it, everyone there, everyone feels the exact same. And so I think having that support from a lot of people in your classroom and just acknowledging everyone, you're all going through the same thing. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. I see college third year media studies. I didn't mention my majors. I forgot. Sorry. My bachelor's is in communication studies, and my master's is in media studies. So that's really cool. I see first year college, taking computer science. That's awesome. If I could go back in time, I probably would do computer science. Medicine, that's awesome. Senior high school, applying to college is so exciting. You have some majors you're interested in, but which one is the one for you? That's hard. I mean, like I said, when I got into college, I was kind of confused about what major I wanted to do. And to be honest, a lot of students are. There's a lot of students who don't really figure it out until halfway through, and that's okay, right? I just empower you to take your first year, definitely exploring and reflecting on what exactly your interests are. And what I realized too is when you get to college, or when we grow up, right? We hear about the different careers that are offered. And we typically think of the common ones, right? We're okay, when I grow up, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm going to be something else like that in medicine, dentist, whatever. You're going to be a business person. You're going to be a this and that, whatever, like software engineer. We always hear those like very specific common jobs. But what I've realized, especially being in the workforce in the last 10 years, is there's a lot of jobs that like we've never even heard of, right? So what I really empower everybody to do again is like literally think about like what exactly are you interested in, like not even from an academic standpoint, but like what do you like what do you like to do in general? Like, is there a way for you to put together just your general interests, things that make you happy, and then combine that with like a career? Like that's what I've always tried to find in myself too. So I really encourage you to do that for sure. Modern languages, that's awesome. First year English lit, really don't like it. You have passion for dancing, singing. That's really cool. Yeah, like the art side is always like interesting majors. And you know, like I'm pretty sure there's ways to like combine English lit too with like the arts and being on stage and things like that. And I mean, to be honest, so you're very conscious about the fact that you're in your first year of English lit and don't like it. So I would certainly reflect on that. Like I said, my first year as a business major, hated it. And was contemplating like, do I stay here just because I already chose this major? And I look back now and I'm very glad that I didn't decide to do that. So not sure. Currently registered in bioscience. Very cool. Data science is awesome. I wish my college had data science. I would have done that. I haven't done that. I would have done that if I had. 10th grade, awesome. Being in the fandom made you interested in music industry. That's cool. So yeah, so the music industry is interesting, right? Because it's kind of evolving. With your interest in fandom, like there's this shift that's happening. And this is kind of like very similar to my dissertation work, where I focus a lot on the change of the music industry because of fandom. So for a very long time, right, the music industry had the upper hand in like really influencing trends and even fan culture. But like now it's like turning around and we're seeing with fans like ARMY, right? Like they're the ones who are influencing the music industry now. And from like a business perspective, that's like a really big deal. And so everyone here too, like I always tell people this, you know, people on the outside think that being a part of fandoms, like it's unproductive, but like in reality, we're learning a lot, right? Like as part of fandoms, we learn a lot of things here that sometimes we don't learn in our normal lives. And I really encourage you all to like reflect on the skills that you've learned in the fandom and then take that to heart into and translate that into the real world and what you're doing. And I think that's awesome. Let's see. Finished high school, congratulations. Taking some time to figure out your path. It is very confusing for sure. So I understand that. But I promise, like, just it definitely gets better if you start reflecting on the things that you love. That's awesome. 11th grade, 2 years from college. Not sure again. Yeah, not sure what to choose and what's right. You want to be a high school guidance counselor. That's awesome. Not sure if you're on the right path to be able to work at a school. So interestingly, like, so with guidance counselors, I know a couple. So it's varied. Like I know a lot of people who are guidance counselors, they have backgrounds in like social work, and sociology. Those are big ones. There's a couple who do English and communication. So that too, again, like there's different routes. Like sometimes with like careers, you don't just need to do like a specific major. Sometimes with certain careers, like you can have multiple. And it's just trying to figure out like what type of counselor you want to be, right? Like how do you want to frame yourself in that career path? So there's definitely, if you want to be a high school guidance counselor, there's different paths to, there's no one right path for sure. 12th grade, you enjoy art, reading, unsure, like to do social work. I just talked about social work, psychology. That's very cool. I mean, like art and reading certainly fits in with social work and psychology. So that's really great that you enjoy that. I love this question. So personally, are there times you want to give up? If so, what keeps you going? Yes. So I've learned to like embrace this about me, and I think a lot of people should certainly do this. Like even till this day, like being 10 years in my career and doing all of this stuff and feeling at least confident in what I do because I've been doing it for so long, there are a lot of days where like I feel like I just want to give up. But I think it's now at different levels, right? Like I think now in my career I want to give up in the sense where I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. But I think that's for a lot of us during COVID, right? I think it kind of hit us all at once, and it's very overwhelming. You know, whereas other times I wanted to give up because I just felt like I wasn't good enough for the job, or I was so scared like to mess up, and there's just a lot of pressure as young people like trying to make it in their careers. Like it's tough, I get it, but again, I think what keeps me going is like remembering what I'm passionate about and why I do things in the first place, right? Like I always told myself from the beginning is I always want to do things not for the sake of doing it, but because I'm really passionate about it, right? And because it has like a purpose for me. And I hope that a lot of people like go about their time and in their careers and in their college life doing the same thing and doing things with a purpose, because that's really what keeps me going. And like I said, I mentioned earlier, when you reflect on things, like reflect on what gets you up in the morning, right? That's what I think about every day. Like when days are hard, I think about like, why am I here? Like, why do I want to do what I do? And one of those things is like, I want to make an impact on my work, whether it's my career or my education. Like, I just want to make an impact. I just want to do good through my work. And in my head, I'm like, the result is going to come and I just need to work towards it. Right. So for you, BTS and ARMY have taught you so many things that your family or society would never taught. Yeah, absolutely. It's very true. I mean, you know, fandoms are just like any normal community in our society, right? Like, we learn just by interacting with each other. We learn from each other. We learn new skills just by being on like social media. Like even ARMY academics holding this thing, we like learn through these events, right? So I think that that's amazing that ARMY has created this like culture of support for each other. And so I hope that all of you continue to stay in this network in that sense, for sure. So someone was homeschooled, graduated 2015, now here at 22, still confused, looking into. I'm so glad that you're feeling motivated. That's really great. I mean, like, to be honest, like 22, like I was 22 and I thought that I had my career mapped out, and that was when I realized I hated the job that I was at, right? So I had to certainly reevaluate. So I understand that, like, the confusion, like, is something certainly to not be afraid of or to be overwhelmed by. It's just thinking again, like, okay, like, let's regroup. I didn't like what was happening, and now I'm confused again. So let's like start over and map it out again, right? And that's exactly what I did, and that's certainly what I encourage you to do in that sense. But I'm so glad you're feeling motivated. Susie said, every time I want to give up, I remind myself that Namjoon would be so proud of me if he knew how hard I'm trying. That's what keeps me going. No, that is not dumb at all. I actually have a pin. It's not on my board. It's a pin, and it said BTS would be proud of you. And I like love looking at that. And I really do believe, like, and I think that's the power of like BTS and our connections as like ARMY to them, right? Like, they make us want to do like really, really great things in the world. And I really truly do believe, like, as much as people on the outside might think that it's so cheesy, like, I do believe that like us powering through and getting through the days, like whether it's the little things or big things in our career and college, education, whatever, like I really do think that they would be so proud of what ARMYs are doing. And so I love that motivation for you. That's really awesome. Did your family support you with the career you chose? Family doesn't want the career I want to pursue for me, so you're torn. Yeah, so that's interesting. I'm very grateful and lucky with my family. They were definitely the type of people who are like, follow your dreams, but like be logical, right? So that was interesting. So with my career, I think that's why I chose business, because it was like obvious, right? You're like, business, like, yeah, why not? Like, what could go wrong? And then I chose communications, and they were like, what is that, right? I think that's the hardest part, is trying to explain to people in your life like what you don't like and why it doesn't like align with what they want. But then showing them like why you love something else, and showing them why that path is okay too, right? That's how I always approach things. Like whenever I meet somebody who's like doubting what I do, I like always mentally prepare that conversation in my head before I like meet with them. I'm like, okay, I anticipate like what they're going to say. So I guess best two examples is, my career hasn't really been like super questionable. It's my research side, right? Like, cause it's not the most traditional like research. So when you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to study BTS or One Direction, whatever, people like definitely looked at me weird. But I remember going to an advisor in my master's program, and I wrote down everything that I thought about it. I wrote down, this is what I want to study. This is why I want to study it. This is why it's significant, not just to me, but to like knowledge in general, to academics, to research, to our society. And then I anticipated like what questions they possibly would come back at me, right? Like I wanted to make sure that like I could prove my point. And so, yeah, like I remember going to my advisor and saying, I want to study One Direction and Twitter. And she was like, no, I don't think that that's like that great of a topic. And I was like, okay, you might not think that, but like, let me show you why, right? And I get that sometimes that sounds really easy too, and it's a lot more difficult in other senses, especially with like family and stuff. But I've certainly had to fight with some family on that too. Like not my parents or my sister, but I've had family members like be like, what? Like, why would you choose to research that? Because it's such a waste of time. And I try to just like, I try to acknowledge, like, I get that they have their opinions, but let me like show them that what they're saying is not true. And I think a lot of that motivates me too, right? Is like the idea of I'm going to prove them wrong, and I'm going to show them. And so, a lot of people in my life have kind of come around in that sense, and now they're like, oh, that's so cool. And so it takes time, but I think again, like just as BTS has encouraged a lot of people to do, like just as they have for themselves, like I really just wanted to stay true to myself and not do anything based on anybody else's expectations. And I think for everybody that should be top of mind, because I watch so many people in my life choose career paths, choose majors that they hate, and they're miserable. And that is why I do what I do now, because I look at them and I say, I don't want to be that, right? So I think making that choice to just follow like your path and what you're interested in is just so important. So you're kind of homeschooled too. I am familiar with the homeschool system. I almost was homeschooled because I was a tennis player growing up. And so I was like the only kid in my tennis academy who wasn't homeschooled. But I was very familiar because all my friends were. You're like trying to figure it out. I get it. Need to transfer it to 4-year anniversary 2022. Not sure how to even start planning that. How do I know what school is good for me? Oh, that's a really good question. Choosing colleges is a really interesting dilemma. I had a couple schools that I was interested in, but ended up settling for my not settling in a bad way, but I ended up staying home in Las Vegas. What I normally tell people is to not, so first off, I know that there's like novelty and like notoriety in choosing like these big grand schools that have like big reputations, but to be honest, like your education is like what you make of it. And so the first thing you always do is when you're looking at colleges, don't think about the label and the brand, like look at all of the majors, look at the programs and the classes, and see if they line up with like your interests, right? So again, like take a time to think about like what you're interested in, what you potentially might want to do, like what is going to be your passion? Like, are you going to be interested in those majors, right? Like, look through the websites, look through the majors and the classes that they offer. And then if they align with you, definitely keep that in mind to apply for. But I've seen people apply like for schools and just be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to that college because it's like a big deal. And you shouldn't do that at all, because then you're going to be forced into choosing like majors that you might not be interested in because they don't offer something that you like really wanted to do, you know? So definitely keep that in mind. How do you build your confidence? You struggle with, oh, I love this. I struggle with low self-esteem. Yeah, throughout my career, I really was a very up and down person with my confidence. When I started college, I had high confidence, and then when things didn't go my way, my confidence dropped again. And then when I started my first job, I was like on a high, and then realized like, oh man, that's not what I want to do. Like, I'm dropping back down. Went to my next job and thought I was doing well, but then like my confidence went really low because the work environment was like really challenging and toxic. And then even when I got hired as a director, for a very long time, I would sit in my office and literally ask myself, like, why am I here? Like, I would think in my head, I'm such a fraud. One day, these people who hired me are going to realize that I'm like really not good. Like, you know, I like went through these up and downs. But surrounding yourself with really good people who inspire you and encourage you is super important. It took one person in my life who sat down with me and was like, Nicole, you seem to be very like occupied with like how good you are, and you think you're not good, but like you are good. Like, he told me, he's like, I hired you because I trust you. I know your work. I know that you can do it. So don't be afraid to do what you think is right in this job. Like, you know what to do. And like, it took that to like really give me a lot of confidence to be like, you know what? Like, I can do that. Like, it sounds so simple, but I just feel like I didn't ever have anybody like tell me that to my face. And that was so important. And I really like, for everyone here, like I tell students all the time, like, don't go in with this mentality of like, I don't have experience, so I can't do it. It should always be like, I don't have the experience, but I'm like ready to learn, and I'm willing to take the next steps to like improve and get better. Like, I certainly can still improve, even though I've been in my career for 10 years. There's so much I don't know. And so keeping in mind that it's okay to keep learning and to make mistakes, which I've made so many mistakes, like, that's always a big learning experience. Just like take all of that with you, but find people in your life who you can like confide in, and talk to and tell them like, hey, like, I'm not really feeling great about like my confidence and self-esteem here. Like, what do you think about it? Right? Because what I realized at the end of the day is there are other people there who like think you're better than what you're thinking in your own head. Like, we really are like enemies, like in our own brain. So like getting out of that is super important. So I try to remind myself all the time. But if it wasn't for COVID, you'd travel, study in the US, but had to stay home. Yeah, COVID really messed up a lot of plans for a lot of people. Don't really think you want to study here. Now conflicted in what you should do, continue, take the risk, start again. Yeah, that's always really tough, right? Is like going to different places. I know quite a bit of people who've traveled and done studying and abroad, and trying to figure that out. And I get the conflicts there for sure. I think weighing out like the pros and cons, and I think that's where you need to certainly be like a little bit logical, right? Like, that's a big move and a big step that I've never experienced, where you're just gonna leave your country and go somewhere else. I just would encourage you to have a plan of action. I think it's an amazing opportunity to go abroad. I have friends who studied abroad and went elsewhere, and they had the most amazing experience. And I would just make sure that like you have a plan ready, and that everything is, just to ensure that you take steps where you're not like all of a sudden like there, and then you realize like, oh man, like maybe I spent a ton of money, and then just, yeah, there's just a lot of like factors there. So I would just weigh out like the pros and cons. There's an example that comes up. I know somebody who went to a different country, didn't have like any sort of plan. He's like, okay, I'm going to take this internship in another country. That was it. But didn't take into consideration, like, once the internship is over, like, what next, right? He didn't have money to continue staying there. He didn't actually like secure a job there. Like, he would just went into this mentality of like, I will figure it out eventually in like 3 months. I love the spontaneity of that, but like that, to be honest, like freaks me out, and I don't encourage that because sometimes it doesn't work out that way. So yeah. Sage, my parents are very supportive of my current decisions. Hard to know myself as well, as I want to, but no, my parents aren't very open to many ideas. How do I follow my own dreams and not get sucked into theirs? Yeah, again, that's a really tough situation that I luckily like have never had to experience, but I know so many people that have, and I think at the end of the day, I watched friends tell their parents like, hey, like, I understand what you want from me, but this is what I want, and I'm going to do it. And I think having that open conversation is like super important with your parents. I think the only time I really experienced this was in high school. Because in high school, I didn't really care that much about school, to be quite honest. I wanted to get it over with and then get to the next step, but I just didn't want to study. I was so disengaged and uninterested. And my mom sat me down and was like, what is going on? She has all these expectations of me. And I was very open and honest with her that nothing interests me. And I'm just trying to figure it all out. And I'm very lucky that she was open to that and said, listen, like, you don't have to figure things out now, but I want you to do well. And eventually you'll like figure it out. But yeah, when there's that conflict, I understand that that's tough. But I would hope that if I were ever in that situation, that I would follow my own advice, and that I would tell my parents that as much as I respect what their thoughts and their decisions, I would still continue to do what I wanted to do, because in the end, it's like, it's good. It's your life, right? My mom is like a perfect example of that too. And I think that's why she never pressured me and my sister to do anything that we didn't want to do. It's because, she was kind of like forced into a specific career path that her dad wanted her to do. And even till this day, we like have talks about it. And she's like, man, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I did something else, So you don't want to be stuck in that position. It's your life. As long as you're doing good and you're not hurting people, like, I think that that's a terrible decision to follow your path and follow your dreams. So you're an indecisive person. I want to ask, how do you stick to what you're doing without maybe thinking you're not meant for it? You question your decisions a lot. So wondering tips. Yeah, I sometimes have this till this day too. I sometimes question like whether or not my career path was right for me. And I try not to get stuck into that too much again. I think why I started questioning it was because I started getting really into research and like the tech side, and I love data science. And I was like, why did I do communications? I don't want to do communications anymore, all that stuff. But I realized that mentality isn't really great for me. Like, my career, it overlaps with my research passions too. So I think that that's really like a plus. But yeah, I don't know. I get it. The not wanting to stick to something. I mean, again, I think thinking about it, it takes time, right? So I think just because you like start something in like a day and then be like, okay, I don't like this, I'm going to change it. Like, that's very unproductive too, right? Like, finding your passion takes time. So like me, I didn't think I was going to like research, but I started doing it, and over like months and even like 2 years, that's when I realized like, that's like, I love it. Right. So I think I don't think that you should give up on something so easily, but I think over time you'll like eventually you'll figure it out in your head whether or not you like it and whether or not you're good at it and whether or not it's something you want to continue to pursue. So I would just encourage you to stick with it until you really feel confident that that's not for you and that you could move on to something else. So you need to take one more class for your medical translation certificate. Realize that you need one more for bio, for psych major. Not sure if you should just not get your translator certificate, sacrifice some of your psych electives. So I would certainly speak to an advisor about that. I mean, you're so close to getting your translator certificate that I would hate for you to not get that. But again, I think just weighing out the pros and cons, right? Like, do you want your medical translation certificate? Is that something that's going to help you in your career, in your path that you want to take? If so, definitely do that, right? If not, and if the other option is more viable and it makes more sense, like, you can do that too, right? And if there's an option for your school to allow you to somehow finish both in a more productive sense, I would do that too. But I would certainly advise you to talk with your advisor and get that sorted out. I know how that is for sure. One of your worries is feeling left out, getting out of your shell because you're a strict parent, not really used to socializing with other people, feel like pondering about what your mom be okay with even though you're not with her. Yeah, I know a lot of people like this, especially some of my closest friends had strict parents and didn't really get out of their shell. I think the great thing though is once you get to like college and I don't know what grade level you're in. I would socialize as much as you can, like in those classes, because that helps too, even though you're not like, my parents were semi-strict. Like, it wasn't until maybe I was like 24, 25 that they started being like, okay, like, go run free. So I kind of get that too. That's kind of like an interesting dilemma in terms of like family dynamics, but I would hope that like parents eventually, as like we all grow older, like every single one of us, that they become a little bit more lenient and like trust you. Like I said, like if you're not hurting anybody, like there should definitely be some trust there, but open communication with like your family members is certainly good. Any times of lost motivation? How did you stop listening to people's expectations and opinions? It hurts when it's from friends. Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit earlier. It certainly does hurt. I remember when I first started doing my research, for instance, I actually didn't tell a lot of people that that's what I was doing because I knew the reaction. And one time, the first time I ever presented my research at my university, I actually got laughed at. Like, the screen popped up, and so people saw that I was studying One Direction, and the first thing I hear is like people in the crowd laughing. And it was like terrifying. And that was certainly hurtful because like it's something that like I love, and then these people don't take it seriously. But what I realized is like people naturally laugh at things and criticize things that they just don't understand, right? And I remember by the end of my presentation, people were coming up to me afterwards and being like, oh man, like, when I first saw that title, I was like, this is like really dumb, but you presented it. And like, now I get it. Like, I get why it's like a serious topic and an important topic. Right. And that's how I try and treat it with my family too. I've had family members be like, okay, so you're going to do your PhD on like BTS. Like, what are you even going to do with that? Right. And my response is just to explain it, right? Like, it's just to say like, yeah, I'm sure you feel that way, but like, let me tell you like why it's actually really important, like why I do it, right? It's not stupid. Like, this is why. And like I said, I'm very lucky that my family is like open to that. And so I'm grateful for that. So you literally like just don't let what anybody says like get you down on that sense. Like, you also like, you don't owe anybody anything either. And that's what I've really learned about myself is like, I don't owe anybody any explanations either if I don't want to give it, right? Sometimes people are just not going to. Okay, like that's life, right? And I feel bad for them that they can't have an open mind about certain things and can't be open to what we love, because we all should be able to love what we love and be interested in what we're interested in without having people criticize that. And so that's just how I try to live my life, right? Yeah, it's certainly a horrible feeling for sure. Senioritis. Oh man, yeah, senioritis is terrible. Experienced that both in high school and college. High school was probably worse because again, like I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just wanted to get out. That was my. I just wanted to go to college, even though I just didn't know what I wanted to do. Dealing with it again is just thinking about like the end goal. Even if in high school I didn't know what I wanted to do, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to graduate, and I at least want to graduate with honors. So that's what kept me going. I wanted to make sure that I was all good, got my assignments done. I did the bare minimum, I'll be honest. I did definitely the bare minimum, but as long as I saw myself graduating and walking across the stage, and as long as that was going to happen, that's what got me through. In my college career, senioritis is a little bit different, whereas it's a little bit more like anxious because you're like, oh my gosh, like I have senioritis, but like I don't want it to end because I'm not ready, like because then that means like the next step of like your adulthood, right? But again, like I tried to always be like, okay, well, even though I'm nervous about it and scared, like what does the future look like for me, and what do I want it to look like? And so that made me a little bit less nervous. And yeah, like the final semester is hard because you're like, okay, I'm going to graduate, but I still have to get all these papers done. It's just pushing through. Like, you know, I have friends who are like getting ready to graduate. They have like 1 or 2 semesters left of grad school, and they're like, I hate this. I just want it to end. Like, I don't want to be here anymore. And I tell them all the time, like, it's going to go by so quickly. And you're going to look back like a year or 2 or 5, 10 years from now and look back and be like, oh man, I did it. And I finished it, and I'm proud of myself, and like good thing I like pushed through. Right. So I think that's really important. Just like keep pushing through. I know people say that all the time, but it really is true. Just keep pushing through. Angie, I don't know. I know it's like 5:58, but like, I really appreciate everybody's questions and comments. Like it's so great. Again, like, feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email again in the chat. Like always feel free to reach out if you have any other further questions. I'm always happy to like talk these things through. So.
Well, thank you so much, Nicole. In fact, we still have time actually, if you want to keep going. You
awesome.
Can do so. Yeah.
Oh, sure. I mean,
yeah, Google Meet.
Yeah,
still
I mean, I know we've.
Yeah. Yeah, Google Meet still haven't.
I don't want to keep. I don't want to keep people like too long. I appreciate everybody coming here because I know we're like all different time zones, and so like choosing the right time zone, I know it's hard. I know a lot of people here like it's probably like super late or super early, like all those sorts of things. I mean, like I also don't want to bore you for like more than an hour, but I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm looking at all your comments. Like thank you all for being open to listen to me, and I hope that it helps at least a little bit. You know, and I hope to help get you guys motivated just a tiny bit, because I get it. Like it, you know, again, having 10 years of experience, sometimes it's still hard. Like, and I think being able to be open about that, and I don't want to lie to people and be like, oh yeah, it's like perfect after 10 years, you know, there's certainly challenges. It doesn't end, but I think it gets better for sure if you can manage it yourself. So yeah, I don't know if there's any last minute questions. I can always answer more questions, but I also don't want to. Like everybody's time here is valuable too, and so I don't want to keep everybody. But yeah, thank you all. I appreciate your comments in the chat. I'm like reading it through. Yeah, Andy, I don't know if you have any specific questions from your Army academics either, but like I'm cool with wrapping up. Like I said, I don't want people to be here for more than they need to, and you can always contact me via email anyway. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much again. Like, really, it's always amazing to have you here as a speaker, and well, I believe that the people united right now, right here, well, took not only 1 or 2, but even more lessons to think about when every time they start to plan or think about their future. So thank you so much for talking about such an important and yet so like probably invisible topic to talk about, because everyone is like, yeah, follow your dreams, but that's it. And
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
okay, follow my dreams. How will I follow my dream?
Yeah.
So it's always great to hear someone who is sharing their experience about how indeed they first find that thing they feel passionate about and then follow it. And as you said, it's not something easy to do. It's not something easy to think, and of course not easy to follow. But it is certainly something to look up for. So thank you so much, Nicole, for real.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, you're so right. And yeah, I think on a final note for Army Academics, like you guys have such a great resource with Army Academics. Like please use them because I think it's amazing. Like as somebody who works in education and nonprofits who like try to do these types of events, like this is so important that like armies are able to connect on this like academic level and community support. So I think it's amazing. So if you ever like need assistance, they obviously have a lot. So use their resources and everything they have. So it's amazing. So thank you to all of you and your team for putting this together. I think this is amazing. So.
Oh no, thank you so much for coming and for accepting our invite, because literally without all of you, this chat, this talk, and this week wouldn't be possible. So like thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you all, everybody.
All right, so that will be all for Follow Your Dreams panel. And please guys, keep enjoying ARTC and look up for our closure activity, or if you have any more talks you will be attending to, please be welcome. And you too, Nicole, in case you will want to attend one.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, guys, and bye.